This is the DLR Cast, the essential podcast for fans of Diamond David Lee Roth. Heard you missed us. We are back once again. This is the DLR Cast, the only podcast by and for fans of Diamond David Lee Roth. As always, I am one of your demented, loving Dave I don't know what I'm doing here. Co-host Steve Roth, along with my good friends, I'm Rusty, Darren.
I have
Darren
multiple
Paltrowitz.
Personalities.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm Rusty. We won't fix this in the mix. You know, this is the behind the scenes working without a net sort of thing that comes inherent to podcasting. So how are you, Darren? It's been a few weeks. I told you I'm Rusty.
It's good to be live without a net to keep it Van Halen full circle with all that. But I was thinking, since it's been a while, can we do a Seinfeld style Festivus airing of the Grievances episode?
Absolutely. Yeah. Why not? Certainly we can find a few. And as we do this, we're about a month after the tour dates, the first leg of the tour all ended, which I saw a few videos at the end, and we got a couple fan letters that I thought Dave kind of went out on some of the shows I saw at the end of those dates, kind of on a higher note, let's say, pardon the pun. I mean, singing better. The band was dead on tight, of course, as usual. And I thought he just seemed like he was enjoying it far more than some of the other dates where there may have been some sound issues or voice issues or whatever it was. So
one of our great listeners, Seth Landau, gave a great on-site report of the Arizona gig, and I watched video of it. And the vocals, we'll get into that kind of stuff. But it was Dave telling stories in a loving way, interacting with the band, interacting with the crowd. It was not like Gary, Indiana, to put it nicely.
No, some of the stories were great. I think there was one in Temecula, California, one of the ending 3 or 4 tour dates. Was that the one where he's talking about the stables and he did a little soliloquy in Spanish? I mean, I thought it was really cool. The stories it seemed very genuine and very heartfelt, and the band was cracking up and digging it too.
We'll come back to that kind of stuff, but but I will say Temecula and Arizona towards the end of the tour, the people did seem to really like them more than some of the dates towards the middle. Some of the tech problems seemed to have been solved that had been setting Dave off midway through the tour. And it seemed like it was a well-oiled machine, and they finally get everything up and running and tour's over.
Right. Yeah. We should mention as well, speaking of touring, that there is we saw one little blurb on Dave's social media that winter tour the other day, that winter tour dates will be announced.
We did, and it looks like they photoshopped onto one of the leg warmers or pants, whatever you want to call it, a Hard Rock Live logo. So sound, I had been tipped off to something that goes against the idea of Hard Rock Live shows, unless was he actually wearing Hard Rock Live logo pants or tights? I don't know.
Does Dave have a sponsor or something? Is that what we're talking about?
A lot of the shows on this tour were hard rock, including the infamous Gary, Indiana show. I don't think that there's enough hard rocks in the US for him to really do a hard rock tour. I mean, you'd be doing Gary, Indiana, Rockford, the one that Rick Nielsen co-owns. Florida, which he's already done. I think he's already done most of the hard rocks at this point.
I mean, there's enough of them where you could do a hard rock tour. I'm surprised nobody's done an exclusive hard rock tour that I know of, at least as far as rockers in my purview, my faves, my veterans. So, and you know what? Speaking of, before we go any further, of course, we should say rest in peace to the great Ace Frehley. Some really sad news the other day as Ace has passed on, and not to steal any of your thunder or anything like that, but as soon as we were just talking about veteran rockers, that popped into my head. It's been a sad 3 or 4 days now. And
yeah, absolutely. That one hit me hard. That one hit me on the level of Eddie Van Halen, because I think that there's a lot of similarities. Obviously, Eddie was a much better, not that better is the word, but he was a more influential guitarist than Ace. But if you think about who and what Ace represented, how many guitar players started playing guitar because of Ace?
Well, that's a really good point you bring up, because as influential as Eddie was, oddly enough, remember, they were a few years behind Van Halen, but I'll give you this. Eddie was so influential for the whole 80s rock scene Okay. So how many of the guys were tapping and doing all that and Dave was hugely influential as well. I mean, basically inspired a whole, the hair metal generation, if you will. But
Yep.
I will argue that Ace was as influential, if not more influential, on what became basically all the Gen Z musicians, basically, which became grunge. You name a grunge guitarist who doesn't list Ace before Eddie, or Ace alone, or Ace with Eddie, and I uh, I can't find one. I can't think of one. I mean,
Yeah.
they all had Alive, the first Alive album. I mean, they all had that before they got, obviously, because it came out beforehand, but they were familiar with Kiss. Kiss was the first band that they loved, and like a lot of people maybe moved on from Kiss, but as far as an influential guitarist, and right when grunge came back, you had Ace be, right when, I'm sorry, right when grunge blew up, the
Mhm.
90s, you had the the reunion happened in 96, but before that, a couple years, the unplugged thing, right when grunge is at its height, and suddenly and his guitar player is in the public eye again in a way that hadn't been at least since the first Frehley's Comet record. But this is even bigger because it was the big reunion. So that's a long-winded saying. I think Ace was as influential as Eddie for a lot of different guitar players.
Let me piggyback on that. Rivers Cuomo from Weezer regularly wore the lightning bolt guitar strap, which Ace
Right.
pioneered. And there's that song on the first Weezer album called In the Garage, which is largely talking about Ace.
Yep.
And Weezer unto itself is a very influential band, but without Kiss, there really was no Weezer. And then if you think about that Kiss My Ass, for lack of a better term, that name of that tribute album that Kiss did in the mid 90s,
Right.
it had a Nirvana cover of Kiss on it. Granted, they were making fun of Kiss in a way on that track, but Nirvana, they were Kiss fans, hence bringing out Paul Stanley at Dave Grohl's birthday party alongside Roth
Yeah. Yeah.
and Maynard from Tool. He's on there and he was a huge fan. It really was a who's who. And then all these years later, we know that the Soundgarden guys were huge Kiss fans. The
Right.
Pearl Jam guys were. And yes, they also loved Van Halen, but which band, Steve, got Van Halen its record deal again?
That would be
Oh,
Kiss.
oh, that would be Kiss. Okay.
Right. I mean, I will not to go too far afield on the Ace thing. I mean, because I would bet that probably all of our listeners, obviously Van Halen Dave fans, they're also Kiss fans. I mean, if you have the entire Van Halen catalog in your collection, it's probably pretty good. Like I do, you have the entire Kiss, all the Kiss albums in your collection too. And I think Ace for so many of those guys was more accessible as a guitar
Yes.
player than Eddie, where beyond the pale as far as for I mean there was so many people who tried to imitate him and couldn't really, and it was a poor imitation, whereas and that's not a knock on Ace's talent. It's just Ace is more influenced by Hendrix, came out of that late 60s early
Hmm.
70s thing, and it was just I think it was a more accessible kind of guitar playing. Plus, I mean, the guy wrote some great licks and co-wrote some great songs. So
Absolutely. And also many parallels that you can go to between Van Halen and Kiss, what they became in the later years, and replacement members, and people thinking of which era is the best. That's a whole nother episode unto
right,
itself. But
right.
but the loss of Ace was a big deal to me, and I don't love the how it's split camps right now, kind of like how Van Halen is with this fan base, where if you take Van Halen, there's the people who love classic quote unquote Dave era stuff. Then there's the people who love the Hagar stuff. Then there's the people who just love Ed and Al. Then there's the people who love the classic stuff, but only if it has Michael Anthony on it.
Right, right.
Then you have the people who just hate them all. And the same thing is happening with Kiss, unfortunately, where you have these divided fan bases, and the social media is just so much trolling right now.
Oh, I mean, I make it a point pretty much if I don't have anything positive to say, whether it's on YouTube or social media when it comes to music stuff, I don't bother saying it.
Well,
It's just
this is
not.
the wrong episode for you then, because this is the
Except for on
Festivus.
except for on our podcast.
Yeah,
But no, I mean because it gets to a point where it's like, have you seen any argument that every argument we've seen and heard before? You know what I mean? It just gets tiresome. I just want to enjoy the music.
Agreed. And the first 250 times that people criticize the Dave 2025 dates, I was there to defend Dave rapidly. And I just
Right.
got worn down on time number 251.
Right.
And time number 251, I don't remember if it was the Jay Moore podcast where he had Joey McIntyre on, or I don't remember if it was one of Anthony Cumia's rants about the Dave tour. I hit that limit and I started to think about it. And it all kind of bubbled up in me that also seeing the bad with the good. You know,
Right.
I'm glad that me and Mrs. Paltrowitz saw a bunch of the shows, but here's what triggered me. Here's what triggered me. I've been going to a lot of concerts lately, not just Dave stuff. I've been seeing Devo and B-52s and The Cult and Mike Viola and Superdrag and a lot of nostalgia lately. And none of these other concerts I'm going to, even if the people are around Dave's age or older, no other shows I'm going to do people have to have the qualifier of, well, it doesn't sound good on the phone. He's not singing the melodies. There's no other tour that I'm going to where I'm hearing that conversation.
Y- Yeah. Yes, you are correct. And you don't see the number of excuses out there in the comments world as you do for anybody else but Dave. And
Yeah.
we say it. Shoot, did I forget to say it at the top of my garbled intro? But we're fans, but we're not fanboys. I mean, we try to. I try to remember that. And it's hard to remember that sometimes when you're kind of just maybe out of energy to be negative. So I kind of just look for the positive and be grateful and thankful for what we have out there. But at the same time, though, I'm of the belief where at some point you don't want the you want to keep the good memories. At some point, you just have
Yeah.
to stop. And is Dave at that level? I mean, does this run of tour dates and the next one's coming up? Are we at the point where my whole thing when this to sidetrack a little bit, my whole thing when
Yeah.
this comeback, so to speak, was announced, I thought, when you get to a certain age, 4 years later, could be 10 years later. Do you know what I mean? It's not,
I
it's not like, okay, COVID hit when I'm 48 years old. And now I saw this with Cheap Trick, my beloved Cheap Trick afterwards.
Yes.
And we saw it with Kiss as well at the end of the road tour. And
Exactly.
that is where at a certain age, if you're not keeping it up all the time, you're going to age pardon the terrible pun, you're going to age a little bit faster. So if you're 48 and you're off for a year and a half, or you don't tour for 5 years and you come back at 53, 54, it's okay. But suddenly, when you're rounding the corner of 70, I think there's a big fall off there. And I think we're seeing that with our favorite bands. And when you're rusty, it's
Yeah.
harder to get that muscle back into shape.
So you just mentioned Cheap Trick, also one of my favorite bands. They're playing here on Tuesday here on Long Island. I'm not going. I've
They have
seen
a
them
new album
enough
coming out?
times. But let's say that Robin Zander's not as great as he used to be. Is he doing improvised vocal melodies that have nothing
No.
to do with No.
No, you know what? He's still working within his range, and he's maybe 70% of what he used to be, and 70% of Robin to 75%, depending on the song and the key, is pretty damn well.
Yeah,
Is
he's
pretty
singing the
damn amazing. Pretty damn
songs.
amazing. Oh, sorry, it's still really damn good. Yeah,
He's singing the songs the way we want to hear them. And I was blown away by Devo a couple of weeks ago. It was Devo and the B-52s, which, by the way, one of the worst pairings I've ever seen because B-52s are all about let's have a good time, let's party. And Devo's all about capitalism's terrible, the government's lying to
the
you.
nihilist.
Yeah,
I
the
don't think you
audience
could
was
pay me to go to that show.
I enjoyed it, but I was blown away by how great Devo is. And Mark Mothersbaugh is a few years older than Dave, and Jerry is the bassist who also sings lead on some stuff, also older than Dave.
Right.
Great jumping around, moving. Mark Mothersbaugh went into the crowd. They had outfit changes on stage. It was just nothing like what we're seeing. Now, Dave, his energy doesn't wane, but the thing is, they weren't doing alternate melodies. They weren't, nothing like that is happening. They were happily sharing the spotlight with the band. So all these different things. The Cult, that's another band I saw within the last week, and I
Hmm.
took Dave Criblet from Dave and Dave Unchained to that one. We talked a little off the record Van Halen, and he just unearthed the 1994 Dave interview that he did, which people should
Wow.
check out. But the Cult, the songs are in the same keys pretty much, and Ian Astbury's killing it, and Billy Duffy's killing it, and they're not skating around the melodies.
Right.
I don't think I can think of one artist who's doing that. Hagar is detuning. Um, did you watch any of the stuff that he did his birthday bash stuff this year?
Not yet. No. That's
Belinda
my mea
Carlisle.
culpa. Mea culpa. I mean, I just sometimes you just don't feel really the energy to go deep into something. So lately with Sammy, I don't know. I don't mean to diss him at all, but I just haven't had the desire to check some of that stuff out. It just seems to be very repetitive to me.
It's repetitive, but he's still
He's
singing
still
the
doing it.
songs the way you kind of want it. Do I need to see Sammy dancing with Belinda Carlisle to "We Got the Beat" by the Go-Go's? I do not. And
God.
Michael Anthony had the saddest bass line ever on their cover of Wood by Alice in Chains I've ever. I don't know if he ever heard that song. I know that Alice in Chains opened for Van Halen in '91.
Why the hell were they covering wood? What did I miss here?
Jerry Cantrell just kind of called out, "What do you guys want to hear?" And some people shouted out "Wood," and they played it. And Zach
Okay.
Throne clearly knew how to play it. I think he was on guitar from the Gene Simmons band, and Kenny
Okay.
Aronoff can play anything ever.
Sure.
And Michael Anthony doing the bass part of Wood. I don't know how great that was.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but what I will say again is when you see Sammy, even if it's not in the key that you want it to be in, it's still the melody you can sing along to. And I'm struggling to think of one other artist who with a catalog like Dave, who goes, you're going to hear all the songs you want to hear, just not the way you want to hear them. The only one I can think of is Todd Rundgren. One time I saw him and he gave this disclaimer of, I'm going to play all the songs you want to hear, just not the way you want to hear them. So don't, I think his quote was, so don't write me any letters about how your dead dad was unhappy with me for doing that.
God.
A little morbid, Todd Rundgren, but
I can think of one other artist, Bob Dylan.
okay, Dylan,
But
yes.
that's it. It's a small list, man. Give the
Yeah.
people what they want.
So I just got tired at time number 251 of justifying, oh no, it's great energy. You don't understand. The phones don't pick up that there's compression. But I just got a little tired of all that and having to do that. And then I started thinking about the fake retirement from 2022 and how he laughed it off with saying we got rained out and this was just my first
Right.
retirement. Because when he announced these 2025 gigs, did he ever do a pre-sale or a voucher or anything for the people who did go out to Vegas and didn't get a refund on
No,
their
and I
travel?
think it was just too many years past at that point.
And did he ever do those shows for the Kentucky wildfires or the Colorado wildfires or whatever it was?
No.
No. So none of that happened. And then here we are with the re-records and the catalog and these new songs. And you remember Scotch and Sofa?
Vaguely.
That he just put out those YouTube teasers and he put out that song and then it
All
never got to
right.
Spotify. And so we still have this long ass list of unfinished or incomplete projects. So like the John 5 sessions, is there more? Wh- what's going on?
Right. Right.
The Van Halen re-records that he did with some of the current band. He didn't put out all those songs and then some of them disappeared from YouTube or Spotify. What happened there? The
Right.
DLR band album still off of streamers forever.
Inexcusable.
The box set that came out through Warner Music Group earlier this year had no extras. The social media, zero posts during that whole tour.
Right. Yeah. I
And
mean,
I start to think about then what other artist would have this unconditional love and support when giving so little to the fans and the people actually supporting it.
uh, I can't think of any.
And so I put all that together. And did you read
Although, hold
your
on one second. You know what? This isn't that far removed from Van Halen, right? I mean, as far
yeah,
as when Van Halen was active and when Eddie was alive. I mean, you had a website that was basically, I mean, if you were, I mean, for goodness sakes, for a long time, you wondering someone if someone else bought it and was just squatting on on the URL, you know? I mean, the reissues haven't really, I mean, the reissues, some of the Hagar ones are pretty good. I'll give them that. But there's so much that, as we know, I mean, they certainly haven't done anything worthwhile with the original six.
yeah. That
And
unheard, to rudely interrupt you, because we haven't talked about that unheard Van Halen YouTube channel that's popped up in the last couple of months.
right.
None of that stuff has popped up on any of these Warner reissues.
Right, right. I mean, there's so much stuff out there. And I mean, this is all stuff we've talked about and touched on ad nauseum, and it still continues to drive me nuts, especially with things around this tour. I mean, no announcements, no press, no merch. And it's kind of funny because, again, this isn't that far removed from what Van Halen was doing, right? We're going out on tour in 2015. There wasn't an interview to be had. Now, you can argue, did they need the interview? They still sold out for the most part, I think, right? But in Dave's
Yeah.
case, you should definitely, there should have been some local press. I mean, does he feel it's beneath him to call the top rock morning show 3 days before the show and say, "Hey, I'm coming to town," and have a good, I mean, and do your Dave shtick? I mean, the no
So
merch thing to me it just floors me because I was thinking a bit more on this and I was struggling trying to find. I was going to a bunch of different contacts see if any of them subscribed to Polestar because I would have liked to seen the numbers on this, but I got to thinking about this and looking at a couple different things. There's no way he made money on this tour. This had to have been a money loser. There is no way.
correct.
There's no
Now,
way.
if you
The guarantees
cumulatively,
weren't enough for the size rooms and not for his overhead. There's just no way.
correct, I can confirm that. Now, when you cross collateralize that into a year and a half to 2 year run, if they keep going, yes, the drum riser will have paid itself off. The different parts of it will have paid themselves off. But based on what they've done so far, yeah, no chance. And then the routing of the tour made absolutely no sense. If you're a music industry person, you would look at this map and go, they didn't stick in the same regions for very long. And then they were flying certain dates and then busing certain dates, and it made no sense on any level.
No, it was. I mean, how many? What was it, a third of the dates were in California, almost?
They started in California. They got back to California, which I guess makes sense because
Sure.
Dave and some of the band, not all the band, but some of the band is in
Right.
California, so they get dropped off, and I guess that saves some flight tickets. But none of that really made any sense. The merch could have made it a profitable tour. The merch alone.
Easily. Yeah. I mean, they would have sold a lot of merch.
So I kind of look at all this and go, the social media is off. The performance is off. The communication in general, the public relations is off. His catalog right now is off and incomplete. So many unfinished projects. And it sometimes you kind of go, why is it that we support this guy when he gives us so little? Part of me goes, the second you count him out, the second some kind of miracle happens out of nowhere. We've seen that happen before.
Oh, sure. And in the years we've been doing this podcast, just when we're like, yeah, we don't know what the hell's going out there. All of a sudden, there's a graphic novel or a comic or whatever it is, some big thing, or all of a sudden there's a ton of paintings going up there, or the podcast comes back. There's been two iterations of the podcast, for goodness sakes, and then here it is. It's a medium that he could really, really do fantastic on, and from what I saw, did okay with. He forsakes and it's gone.
Yeah. Okay. So the podcast thing, that includes the list of incomplete things because about a year and a half ago, we heard the saga of his stalker, Dell.
Right.
And that podcast ended with stay tuned for the next update or whatever.
Do you know how great it would have been if he did a podcast once a week while on tour? 30 minutes
Excellent. I'll take Rambling Dave over No Dave in that sense.
to talk about the tour,
Yeah.
which sounds Herculean when you think about it, because most of the time the podcast was about spinning fireside yarns about the good days or whatever.
Yeah. So one of the things I was going to say earlier, one of my theories about Van Halen, the way that things are going now, and we haven't even talked about the Wolfgang stuff. One of my theories is that enough time will fly by that bands that never even had a gold record will be thought of as being multitudes bigger than Van Halen and remembered more. So you, as a Minnesota resident, did you see that the Bob Mayer book about the Replacements is being adapted into a biopic with Finn Wolfhard?
Right. I did see that was it last week? I think it was announced. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
give it 8 years. I think the Replacements will be more talked about and remembered than Van Halen, the way that things are going now.
I mean, there's more unless I bet you someone's thinking of a Van Halen biopic, which for me, I stay away from all those. I don't like any of them. I saw Bohemian Rhapsody, but you know, I'd rather see a documentary. I'm going to sit there and go, well, they just left, and I get it for editing reasons. They just left out this chunk or that chunk, and this guy doesn't sound like this, and you know, none of them really. Call me a purist. I just do not like. I would rather have I would rather have a warts and all, or even like a Billy Joel documentary where he's in control of it all.
Sure, I'll take any of that as long as it's well done. But
Right.
we don't have any inkling of that. Alex Van Halen, when he was doing book press, mentioned, yeah, some of that's in the works, but no update. There was an Alex social media post with Chris Jericho and Steve Brown a couple of weeks ago where Chris Jericho said something like, "And my business partner Alex Van Halen," and we were all going, "Wait, what? What's he? Is he launching something? Did he buy something of Alex's? What's going on?" Haven't heard anything further. Of
Nothing.
you?
Nothing. No.
Nothing. So, it's not that Dave is the only grounds for hurry up and wait and nothing coming, but the Wolfgang stuff, since we did our last episode, the Wolfgang music video, which has undeniable references to Dave in the song and the video, that
Yeah.
came out. And I mean, you agree 100% the video is largely about Dave?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, you really, when you hear the lyrics, it doesn't hit you right away, at least for me. But as soon as I saw the video, it was like kapow. And I think you and I texted about this a couple weeks back when it came out. And I love the fact that the response is in a song and is in a video, not
Yeah.
tit for tat in the press. I love it. Just stay out of the fray, man. You answered it. That's good enough.
So I did a little more thinking about the whole thing. All this started basically because Dave in early 2024 did those podcasts called This Effin' Kid about Wolfgang and all the bratty things he did on tour. And I was thinking about it a little further. Dave did not travel with Eddie and Wolfgang on any of the Van Halen tours.
He, I mean, he traveled separately on his own.
He traveled separately. Did he have the same dressing room as them?
I mean, they probably didn't see each other until right when they got on stage, or before, actually beforehand. Well, at least we know from years past, from photos we saw, you know, that they'd be in the they'd probably see each other an hour before the show, let's say, doing
If
warm-ups or whatever it is.
if
But they
that, but
weren't
Dave
sharing
did,
dressing rooms. They were all on separate buses. They traveled
and
separately.
to rudely interrupt you further, did Dave sound check when he was in Van Halen?
No.
Okay, so he didn't sound check, he didn't travel with them for the most part, and he wasn't in dressing rooms with them. Explain to me how Wolfgang was such an incontrollable or uncontrollable brat again.
Right. What? Yeah. And the whole thing is, even if what really killed me about that whole thing is like, what was the point? What was the purpose of that? It's like, dude, you're 70 years old for God's sakes. What
Yes.
in the world are you busting chops on some bullshit thing with a feud, trying to start a feud with some 35? What? I'm speed. It still boggles my mind. It still pisses me off. And that was I just remember when we were hitting that. It's like, yeah, we can't excuse that. Come on, what's the point, man?
Yeah, so Wolfgang, I'm not going to say it's the classiest response, but it was a great entertaining response that he waited a while to unload on. But that's another thing that once I got into my negative headspace about Dave and his actions and his relationships. So we called attention earlier to Ace Frehley, how That's such a big loss. And of course, no Dave discussion of Ace. Dave called out Ozzy Osbourne and did a tribute to him during the show. Did you read
Right.
about what Ozzy said about Dave in his posthumous autobiography that just came out?
No, I have not got the autobiography. What did he say?
This I think got leaked into Scott Yeager's WDFA Facebook group. They put up the visual, and basically Ozzy said him and Dave were never friends. They never gelled. They had nothing in common whatsoever.
I'd say they had one big thing in common.
Ozzy's denying
product.
that.
It was a product of Bolivia.
He partially denies that in the text, but he says that wasn't my friend. We never connected. We had totally different personalities. It didn't work. And the stories about us with the Bolivian stuff, I don't know if that was true. I don't really remember, but I think it's been blown out of proportion. So what I'm getting at is he gives Ozzy a shout out on tour on stage. Ozzy doesn't think that was his friend, but we still never got anything for Brett Tuggle or for Doug Short, who Dave worked with both of them for a long, long time, closely.
What's your plan for your money? Not just how you earn it, but how you'll use it to live the life you want. At Wealth Enhancement, we can help you build the right blueprint for retirement, college, and handling whatever life throws at you. With over 200 offices nationwide, an advisor is ready to listen and build yours. Let's craft your future together. Get yours at wealthenhancement.com/build.
I think Dave he's an island, man. I don't think that there's going to be so much stuff that comes down when he does the Bozy bop off of this mortal coil. And
Yeah.
not that I want that to happen anytime soon, for goodness sakes. I think Dave's going to be like Keith Richards, pushing deep into his 80s after years of abuse, because he is in such great physical shape, or at least he was for all those years, despite the abuse and despite all the very, very good times. Let's not all call it abuse, but I mean, there's going to be so much that comes out. Those NDAs aren't going to mean a damn thing. I mean, it's I'm almost cringing thinking about it, because it's gonna take down my, I don't know, it's gonna take down my fondness. I say this all the time. I don't want to see my heroes, and I don't want to be dismayed by my heroes, you know?
I hear you on all those ends. I'm saying that there would be time or situations where he could mend a lot of those fences and right a lot of those wrongs, and I'm just not seeing that happening. One of the things that we've talked about on a lot of episodes of this podcast is the Eat 'em and Smile band was a band. They were in the publicity photos.
Oh,
they were shouted out. And this band now, yes, he's shouting them out on stage, but read between the lines. How many interviews with Al Estrada or the backup singers have you seen?
None.
So do you think that those musicians don't want coverage or publicity?
Right. Well, listen, it's been the Dave and Dave only show for now going on 30 plus years. I mean, that was the DLR band, and that ended with Skyscraper as far as the press and publicity. Vi did his own thing, but it wasn't like we saw big band photos around Skyscraper.
No, not at all. And the band lineup changed from the record to the tour as well. And that became the musical chairs era or rather the tradition of musical chairs to come for decades. So there's good things that we can focus on, like that band for this tour was beyond well rehearsed and well prepared and looked great and sounded great and was ready, and publicly there were no scandals and all the tour dates were completed. No one was sick that we know of that prevented these things from happening, and little bits of coverage organically came because they weren't doing any press. We can look at the good things like that Dave came back, that he brought out a couple of deep cut songs that were well received, that certain
he did take some chances with the set list. Yeah, he did take some chances with the set list. I mean, I applaud the fact that it wasn't his singing aside, I applaud the fact that the arrangements weren't note for note. I love the fact that there was extended version of all those songs and they band tried some different things. I think that's great. It was, it was large. I still hate the fact that there wasn't a solo song to be found, and there was a few things that, as we've talked about in other episodes, that I mean, we wouldn't mind not hearing in the set list. So,
Yeah, because I'm always watching old stuff, the algorithm always gives me old Dave clips. And there was a Ray Luzier clip where he was talking about one of the reasons he left the Dave band was because it just became a Van Halen cover band, and he didn't want to push Dave didn't want to push the ball forward with new material,
I
and he
remember
also
that
didn't want to
interview.
do Eat 'em and Smile stuff and old stuff. And he recalled that he told Dave, "Hey, we really should be playing some of the Eat 'em and Smile stuff, some of the old stuff." And Dave told Luzier that he didn't know what he was talking about, and no one wanted to hear that stuff. And he
No,
was
I mean,
saying that in the
he's
late 90s, early 2000s, and seeing that the DLR Band album is still out of print, I think that is a travesty because John Five is at the peak of his fame right now, and Ray Luzier has been a member of Korn for almost 20 years. Those would be selling points or like a feather in the cap to go, yep, I had those guys first.
right. Yeah. I mean, again, it does nothing for the legacy. And I think even as far back as Ray saying that about that Dave didn't want to push the ball forward. I mean, okay, well, if you're going to let something die on the vine, guess what? It's going to die on the vine. I'd venture to guess even today, the crowds that were on this last tour, a good third, if not close to a half, would have been thrilled with hearing anything solo. And they would have known it. They would have known it. And I'm not saying just California Girls, but a deep track or a play. Here, you know what the biggest miss was solo song wise? This is the biggest miss. And I think we texted about this. And with this, think of what this band could have done with it. Ladies' Night in Buffalo.
Sure.
That's it. That if you're gonna do, can you? That is the most soulful, one of the most soulful songs. It's certainly the most soulful song on the Eat 'em and Smile album to me. That song's just got a groove that is just so damn cool. Would have fit in perfect with this band.
Absolutely. The backup singers would have done fantastic on it.
hell yeah.
The vocal range is entirely in tune with what Dave is, whether you believe he's capable of, but it's in his natural register, not crazy high notes. Like if you said, hey, do Elephant Gun, well, okay, that one's going to be a little tough. certain things are going to be very, very tough. Yankee Rose is not easy to sing, but Ladies Night in Buffalo would get recognition and be doable for all parties involved. Totally agreed. Shy Boy might be too fast for him to do. Thankfully, Mr. Big was doing it on this farewell tour with Billy Sheehan singing live.
Yeah, and Shy Boy is such a showcase for Sheehan.
Mm-hmm.
As great as Ryan is, I think anybody would be hard pressed to pull off Shy Boy. Anybody else but Sheehan.
I'm with you there. I'm with you there. Ryan is a virtuoso, but hides it. I don't think a lot of people know this. I saw this in a social media post. I think there was an anniversary death of why can't I remember his name? The bass player singer of Asia.
Oh, John Wetton.
Yeah, Ryan Wheeler had a social media post about his first touring gig was in John Wetton's band playing bass when he was like 18, and that was his mentor.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. I didn't know that because when you look up Ryan online, it shows primarily Dave stuff, a little bit of the stuff that he did with Kuko, Cuco, that's a really big artist, or Shabuzi. I didn't know John Wetton was deep on that resume. It shows his prog chops.
Exactly. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's before Asia. Wetton. I mean, that whole crew, Wetton and Greg Lake and Carl Palmer. Do I have all of Asia? I think there. I mean, those guys are prog superstars, luminaries.
And Steve Howe, who's still with us, thankfully.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Great band. I really love Asia, but this is not the Asia cast. This is the DLR cast. So, the other thing, and Anthony Cumia is a lightning rod for controversy because of his political views. That's Anthony from Opie and Anthony,
Right.
who's now big AM talk show host and podcaster. But he's a huge Roth fan, and Roth did a lot of Opie and Anthony appearances, or at least all the different Van Halen members at a certain point. So he's a fan, but he was reviewing some of the Dave 2025 footage, and he was making fun of the fake smiling. And I was thinking about it a little bit because I think that Dave was genuinely happy in the 70s and 80s on stage. It wasn't a fake happy thing like it is now. But some artists, yes, they have to amp up their reaction on stage. But I think if you're watching Corey Wong or Jamiroquai or 311, those are not fake smiles on stage. Those are not amped up emotions.
Those are genuine, overjoyed to be up on stage. Music for you folks, smiles.
Yeah. So am I crazy for not loving the permagrin?
Oh, the mugging has always got to me. And that's been going on really since the Van Halen reunion, maybe.
Yeah. So here we have this artist that we have to make
the late
excuses. We have to make excuses for how he's singing, and we have to make excuses based on his age and what he's doing and why the set list is. As after seeing Devo or The Cult or something like that, I don't have to make any excuses at all. Yeah. I just kind of missed liking music because I like music and not having to justify why I like it because the trolls are all magnetized to it.
Right. You got a good point, man.
So, even if the show ultimately winds down, I'll give him a chance. I'll go see him on these winter tour dates if I can.
I'm hoping I have a date near me. Come on, Chicago at least, maybe Milwaukee, if not Minneapolis. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, you haven't gotten the chance because he stayed away from your region of the country.
Just about completely, yeah. I wasn't going to Oklahoma, man.
There's no Hard Rock live in Minnesota, right?
Right, but we got casinos. I mean, come on. We get casinos that get big shows.
Yeah, so it's I
think I'm going to go try to see DeMartini and Pierce actually in a couple weeks. I think I'm in town for that. So when they're playing one of the casinos about an hour from here. So sorry.
Yeah, well, with Piercy, it's a case like Dave where you have to kind of justify the vocals a little bit, but it's not like he's just singing a different meter. It's just in the case of Piercy,
no,
he's just Vince Neil style, skipping a couple of words, or he's just holding the mic out when there's a high note or something like that.
Right. Right.
It's not as Roth-like as it was on this tour, but I think what we still don't know about this winter 2025-2026 tour is I had heard rumblings that these were arena shows, and I didn't ask the people who'd know. I'd heard rumblings they were arena shows, and some of that was backed up with the Paramount and other shows that were on stage. He said to the band, like, remember these club shows, because once we get to arenas, they'll all be the same. He said something along those lines. And then when he was signing autographs after one of the Oklahoma shows, I forgot who posted the Facebook video of it. He said something like, we'll be back and the tickets will be more expensive. He said something like that.
Okay.
Which is why I thought arenas.
Who is he opening for? There's no way he headlines arenas.
Oh, no, definitely not. I was just trying to come up with a list of artists that it would make sense. And Billy Idol had his recent run with Joan Jett. And we both know Billy Idol maybe can do 2,000 or 3,000 tickets, and Joan Jett could do 1 to 3. And you put it together, maybe that's like 8,000 or 9,000 people in the arena. And it's the same thing with that Bryan Adams, Pat Benatar tour. Like, who are the artists? I mean, him and Alice Cooper wouldn't be in an arena, but them two and a third might be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I think Dave for a long time tried his best to the point where he couldn't, all the years of touring, tried his best to not open for anybody.
I was thinking
I think it would have looked at a step down. So when he went out with Kiss, I was like, well, this makes perfect sense. He hasn't been around in a while. You're going to be in front of big crowds, and you're going to be in front of a crowd where there's complete overlap, because most of those people in that crowd, like we were saying earlier, loved Van Halen, loved Dave. But I don't know who else is out there to go out there where unless it's some sort of package tour with bands of sort of that ilk.
My other thought was, is there a country artist that Dave would open for? Because do you remember when he was threatening the kitchen sink tour before it was the kitchen sink tour? He was saying, you're going to see us at Yankee Stadium with Metallica. And he might have said like Jason Aldean or Brad Paisley. I remember he named a country artist. And in some interviews over the years, when they asked him what he listened to, he mentioned outlaw country and Rock the Bells on Sirius XM, basically everything except Eddie Trunk.
Yeah, I mean, boy, a country artist. I'm trying to think who. I mean, there's a lot of country artists that are playing arenas. You know what? Here's a little curveball for you. You know who plays a lot of arenas? A lot of comics.
Okay, yeah. John Mulaney, who offered him that Netflix co-host position thing, is doing Wrigley Field. He's doing a baseball stadium.
Good Lord, man. I mean, a lot of comics are doing arenas. Can you imagine some 2-comic, 1-band bill sort of thing where there's a comic, Dave, and then Bill Burr comes out? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, and Bill Burr is a massive Dave fan.
Yeah.
Did we ever talk about that on the show?
We may have mentioned it once or twice.
I remember
I knew he was.
A really old Bill Burr podcast. And keep in mind, I don't listen to Bill Burr. We're not talking about the Riyadh Comedy Festival right now. But there was Bill Burr is a drummer, and there was this podcast episode, I'm going to say 5-6 years ago, where he was talking about geeking out because he saw Greg Bissonette at the Comedy Store in the crowd, and he cornered him. Like, what kind of comic knows who Greg Bissonette
is? Right. You count on one hand, man. It's Bill Burr
and Dean Del Rey,
right?
Dave Hill. It's a very small,
yeah,
batch of
rock and roll comics, right? Yeah.
So I think that there's the possibility of classic rock mishmash of bands, because in seeing B-52s in Devo, which I was talking about before, again, that's a case where each of those bands brings 1,000 to 3,000 people, but then you put them together and you go 80s festival, and people go, that's the best night of my life. I want to go to that, until they actually get there.
Right. Although I would bet you about 3,000 of those people love both bands. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if 1 + 1 = 2 there. I think maybe 1 + 1 might make 1.5.
Watching, to rudely interrupt you yet again, watching that Devo B-52s crowd, there were so many walkouts during Devo. They played second because it was just a crowd that doesn't mix. And if you think about Billy Idol and Joan Jett, yes, they had hits around the same time, and they're both punkish, not the same audience by any stretch of the imagination. These Live Nation tours are sometimes, they make sense on paper, and then you actually go to the venue and you go, Bryan Adams and Pat Benatar. Okay, yeah, they had hits around the same time. It's not the same thing at all. It's not right. So if they do Dave and Alice Cooper, for example, classic rock, yes, nothing to do with each other, different audiences.
Yeah, I think that would be the case of a promoter going, hey, they were both big in the 70s. Alice Cooper makes more sense, and I saw this tour years ago. Alice Cooper makes more sense touring with Rob Zombie. You know,
that was great tour. What I saw was Rob Zombie, Alice Cooper, Ministry, and Filter, and it was a value-oriented, great tour. You didn't get really sick of anything. Everything sounded a little different, multi-generations, lots of hits, lots to look at. Great evening. That fantastic tour.
Right.
I'm hoping it's not Dave and Twisted Sister. That's my mind is thinking it might be Twisted Sister.
Because I know Twisted Sister's coming back. Yeah.
I'm hoping it's not that.
Man, with what we know of D, does he even dig Dave? I don't know.
Well, they started off as a cover band, so I wouldn't be shocked if early Twisted Sister played Van Halen in its cover sets. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if Dee said horrible things about David Lee Roth in interviews and Dave
Right.
never forgot it.
Right. That's very likely.
Do you know what I'm talking about with Dee Snider?
I don't remember the specific interview, but I mean, D has slagged a good number of people, and
Yes.
a lot of people. And I'll tell you what, more often than not, I don't necessarily disagree with him when he's slagging people.
Well,
I wish he wouldn't, but
I don't remember a specific thing that he said about Dave, but Dee Snider will, if you give him a mic and you ask him a question, he says how he feels. So he'll talk
Always.
about bands doing farewell tours and coming back being a crime, and those are the biggest hypocrites ever. And he just did that.
right. But he would make the argument that he wasn't doing it year after year after year, and they didn't say goodbye. And they didn't say goodbye 3 times.
That's fair. So yeah, I didn't bother asking people who would know who Dave's touring with. We just know that he is touring. I know roughly when rehearsals are starting. That part I did ask. He is making them go through the ringer again with rehearsals, meaning it's not like he's just going, oh, you guys know the set, let's do this. And the reason I mention that is everyone gets paid for these rehearsals. So he's sinking himself further into the red with these tour dates. Like, aren't there more fun things he could do with this money?
Hell yeah. I mean, maybe he's finally gonna cash those missing checks that you found for him.
The unclaimed funds. I haven't checked to see if those are still there. I would assume that they are still there. His father had a lot of stock dividend checks from Boeing on that list, if I remember correctly.
Oh God. It's going on 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah, his father passed in the early 2000s, I believe.
Yeah. Did you hear anything about when these tour dates might start? I'm assuming assuming it's going to be January. They said winter tour dates coming soon. They're done for the rest of this year. It's already mid-October. I mean, come on, we got 9 weeks left for the new year.
I wouldn't be shocked. And I didn't ask this. I'm just using Dave logic right here.
I know what you're going to say.
I wouldn't be shocked if there was a New Year's Eve date.
I was thinking of that, but before you mentioned that, I thought I wouldn't be shocked if there was a private Christmas corporate holiday big paying gig or two.
Very possible. If we go back to the time machine of the throwing in the shoes era, that was a New Year's Eve gig in there. He's not afraid of a New Year's Eve gig or two in his time.
Right.
I'm thinking it's late December or January starting for it. And that is not based on me pinning down anyone for information. It's just going on a couple of different rumor mills and then being a Dave Storian, for lack of a better term, of what he's going to do. But I haven't asked. I know that there's been interest from international territories beyond the ones that I've mentioned on this podcast. What I'm saying is offers did come in. Interest is totally there, but the band and the crew probably doesn't have the tour dates right now. They're probably just told, don't book anything. And that's it. Because that's how it went back in the spring. They didn't have, as of M3, they didn't have any of the dates. And we got that press release or whatever on the Monday after M3 and Monday morning. And people in the band and the crew did not have any of that information. We knew before they did. I assume we're still in Guns N' Roses territory.
So overall, I mean, if you had to, I don't know so much of a grade. I mean, overall, was it a good idea for Dave to go out on tour? I mean, clearly a lot of people loved what they saw.
The only reason I think it was good is if ultimately we get an explanation at some point in time. If the way that Dave seems to operate, he does everything, and then 2 years later, he does and as you know, that's the reason I did that. If at the end of this whole tour he goes, and that was my tribute to Edward Van Halen, you go, oh, okay, cool. If
The
that
only
ultimately happens, I go, yep, that was a good idea. That's how he can pay tribute. If that never comes, there's no explanation, then you can only look at this as a failed cash grab.
Okay. I mean, it sounds really far-fetched to think maybe just doing it because he wants to get out there and sing again and play the songs.
I don't think so.
Because
He
in a weird way, he does nothing to protect his own legacy. But yeah, when he is talkative about things, all it is about the legacy, right? We were the soundtrack of your, 15 summers, whatever. I mean, do you know what I'm saying?
Okay, logically, you are dead on correct 100%. But then when I think about the inside source that I spoke with for this podcast, I paraphrased for Ink the Original. And if it's a he or a she or a they or whatever gender that secret source was, allegedly, whatever, whoever that was, what they said was they got a briefing before they went into the meeting with Dave. Don't talk about Van Halen. Don't talk about music at all. And I've heard that from other people. They said when I was going to meet up with Dave, they said, don't mention music and don't mention Van Halen. So I don't get the vibe that he lives in that world or wants to think about that world. I think he just kind of puts on his blinders to do these dates. And then the second the show's over, he goes back to his hotel room and don't say the name Van Halen around him. That's am I making sense?
Sort of, yeah. And I'm trying to compare to it because, I mean, I think he's a genuinely odd and mercurial guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Sam Hagar is a multi-billionaire 10 times over, right? If you happen to see him backstage, right, coming into the arena, or if you get him for 5 minutes, complete stranger to stranger, and you happen to, and out of the clear blue sky, you go, man, I just got to tell you, when I was a kid, when I was younger, that VOA record was the greatest thing ever. You wouldn't have to worry that he was going to freak out.
Right.
Hell, he would sign your VOA record. You know what I mean? It's like there's a normalcy to like every person. Oh, I mean, even to the point where the public persona, the front of it all, right? Like I love Paul Stanley's Instagram feed because half of it's cooking, half of it I'm going biking. He's right. You know, the guy's got an ego the size of a state, but at the same time, he's a family man. He's got kids. He loves his wife. I mean, there's some normalcy there. Even with Gene. I mean, Gene was a guy who you never could see behind that persona, but even unmasked, right? Through the 80s and into the 90s, it was, let me put your log in your fireplace and I want to make a ton of money and blah, 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 blah. And then in the social media age, right? Look at him and there was a TV show. Look at him with the puppies, with, running around, whatever. I mean, on social media, there's nothing behind this mask that Dave has. And the thing is, for every little, we gobble up and love every little piece of normalcy. Oh my God, the Los Angeles River Yacht Base and Bike Club, whatever it is. I mean, it's like, whoa, look at this guy. He's out about riding a bike. And we love all that shit because it's so rare. Because I think I just picture like this Howard Hughes-esque sort of mercurial, almost like here's a good one. Here's not to compare artists, but in a weird way, right? Prince, okay?
Yeah.
You would see, Prince was a Prince sighting here for decades was always a big deal because you didn't see him out much, right? But when you did, literally, you saw him at the Electric Fetus record store.
Mm-hmm.
I know people who was like, oh yeah, my cousin used to work at the CVS in Chanhassen, and he would walk in there, the little suburb where Paisley Park was. Do you know what I mean? Do you remember 15 years ago when YouTube came out, there was Dave eating a salad in a mall food court? Do you get where I'm going with this? It's like, we don't see anything besides nothing or this mugging, hyperactive ADHD, what the fuck about thing, which is so different than go back as recently, and I mean this recently compared to like the 70s, the interview you did with him in the 90s.
I I think we're
Something went
speaking
awry. Something went weird the last 20 years. You'd see him out and about in New York.
yeah, we're speaking the same language here. Pasadena people believe it. I've heard a lot of things. They saw him out and about a lot in Pasadena, yet somehow it doesn't leak or it doesn't go wide. Or I don't know if he then has somebody that walks up to that person afterwards and goes, "You are not posting about this. Sign this. Here's $100. Shut up." I don't know if they get all Men in Black kind of stuff going on out there. I would not be shocked, but I think that he would have benefited tremendously if he just did. Okay, let me give a related anecdote. I used to know this guy who's produced some stuff with Bill Murray. And what I've heard is that Bill Murray knows that when he goes out to a place that everyone is going to mob him. So the way that Bill Murray kind of would diffuse that is he'd walk in and he'd kind of do his performance and then people would applaud and he'd go, "Okay, I'm going to eat. Thank you very much." Like the people already got their thing out of him and now we can go away. I think if Dave gave a little bit, it would have gone a long way. It would have helped with his image, and we wouldn't have to guess all these things. Some people benefit from mystique. David Bowie tremendously benefited from the mystique, but then
Yes.
again, he also did down to earth things also. He was also seen in public too. He didn't have a
Right.
bad reputation, even if he did do weird things. And everyone loved David Bowie. I think that if Roth, for all the publicists that he's hired over the years, if he actually listened to them and followed through on their stuff, we would be totally talking about different things than we are now.
Okay, two things. As far as just being out and about in public and all that stuff, I'm sure I would bet when he's not on tour, most of that time, if he's not traveling somewhere, and that's always been a big thing. I mean, like
Yeah.
the song sang, "Where is David Roth?" Well, I mean, the guy's always had the wanderlust, right? He's always done that
Yeah.
traveling thing. So, I mean, the last 15 years, 10 years, how much time has he spent overseas compared to when he used to? I don't know if the travel's less or not, but what I'm saying is, I think he doesn't get beyond those mansion walls in Pasadena much. And I think part of that is, and it could be maybe part of it is just for maybe the guy has legitimate reasons to worry about his personal security.
100% correct. I don't think I said this on a prior episode. If I did, sorry for repeating myself. They are having security briefings before every performance, like really in-depth people. They have threats. I'm empathetic towards that, but I think that some of the threats that they have are just the person loves Van Halen and wants to meet him. That's it. It's not a crazy person. It's just, I love Dave. I'd love to finally get to meet him. And that's it. And then they're taking it the wrong way.
I think there could be there could be one or two crazy fans. Like
Every
that Dell guy, who knows,
every
but every
band
right,
has that.
right.
Every.
Yeah. The other thing is, I wonder too, is that when it comes to the lack of press and publicity,
Mhm.
maybe you can't do it really in a focused, coherent way anymore. For whatever reason, is it too much pot? Too much? Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a world of difference. Like I just related to the interview you did. I see these interviews all the time. What was it that pop up in my feed too? This old stuff, the Joan Rivers show, the '80s stuff, where he's sitting there with that cool Captain Banana hat on in front of the Tiki Hut or whatever. You know what I'm talking, right? The MTV stuff. I mean, to the '90s when he's interviewed just for 5 seconds with for 2 minutes on the couch or whatever with the bluegrass band. Do you know what I'm saying?
I
It's
know what
so
you're saying.
markedly different behaviorally, and I just wonder if something. I mean, obviously there's still a focus and there's a coherence there to putting a band together
Mhm.
and being up on stage and doing all that. But the few interviews we've seen the last few years, the podcast stuff in particular, man.
I think all we've really seen, there was a wave of stuff around Ink Their Original, like Scott Lips and Debbie Millman and Mark Maron and Vulture. It was probably like around 10 interviews that he did a short period. Then he went quiet during COVID. I think there was the CBS 60 Minutes Australia. There's the New York Times, which there wasn't audio on.
And that was focused on the painting.
That was focused on the painting, which is another thing of like, that's an incomplete thing that didn't really get finished or resolved. And then I remember there was the second Joe Rogan appearance that he did in Austin, where he was talking about getting the gold tooth. And then there was the surprise VMAs appearance on the red carpet where he's talking about Real Housewives, and he introduced Lil Nas X as part of the broadcast. And I think that's it. I think we're coming up on almost 5 years since an interview.
Yeah. And to do nothing around any of the tour dates, like we alluded to, there's got to be no, there doesn't have to be a reason for it other than he's not doing it. But
okay.
It doesn't make sense not to. But the other thing I was going to say too was I just lost my train of thought.
Well, because I was interrupting you because
podcasting, folks.
because of the Zoom buffering and my interrupting. But here's an improvised theory. What if the Vegas hotel room knocking on the door thing from 2018 or 2019 was when they went, okay, no more. And that was it. They realized from that point on, no more things that we can't really control. And then he went, but I want to do Rogan. And they went, okay, fine. But I want to do the VMAs. And he went, okay, fine. But no more, no more.
Right. I mean, because he does have an idea and a grasp of what's going on culturally and what's happening every day in the news. The guy's a voracious reader. He pays attention to what's going on. I mean, do you remember, I mean, during COVID and post-COVID, even election season wise, there was like a cartoon or whatever alluding to current events and different things like that. I mean, he's not this hermetically sealed rocker dude. I mean, but at the same time, I just get this feeling that he's just kind of really weird recluse now.
I have a theory that I can't substantiate, that he's been putting out art this whole time under an alias.
That'd be a cool thing to do. I don't necessarily know why, but I think that would be a cool thing to do.
There has been tons of examples of that where people just went, my fan base doesn't want this, and I don't want any expectations for me to deliver. And that's what I think is going on. That when he records this stuff and when he paints this stuff and he draws this stuff, it gets
for his benefit.
It doesn't just go on a shelf or in a storage space. It goes somewhere. It gets out there somewhere. And that helps with the tax write-off purposes of the whole thing. I can't substantiate it, but if you have an engineer on your payroll like he does, there's no chance he's just not doing anything. It's just he realizes his bread is buttered from singing these same 20, give or take, Van Halen songs, and he thinks that's what people want from him. But as we've talked about, they want Eat 'Em and Smile, and they want Skyscraper also.
Right. And the DLR band, which is a perfect segue to John Five's great interview with Billy Corgan's podcast. I love Corgan's podcast. I just see a lot of people like, oh, he talks too much. But it's a conversation. I think I never not enjoy. I mean, I could care less about Corey Feldman or whoever was on a couple of weeks ago, or I mean, but for the most part, I mean, the one with, what was it with? Do you have Gene on?
He had Gene on early, Wolfgang, Sharon
Wolfgang was great. Yeah, So the one with John Five was great. And it was, John didn't really give us anything that new, except for what really stood out was the fact that the DLR, it was a song, the DLR band song, or what was it, where they didn't have a click track, and he's like, I hate to ask you this, but, and he read it, and he's like, I did it for free because it's Dave, and I did it all again. But I can't remember, was that what was that, a DLR band track, or what was that?
I thought
I'd have to go back and listen to the interview, but
I thought that was the entire California Sessions thing.
Yes, you are correct. That's it. Yeah, because he did say Bissonette, right?
Yeah, and we know that Tuggle played on it, and there was a percussionist as well whose name escapes me. I don't know if it was like Luis Conti or something like that, but Yeah, they recorded all of John's tracks and they forgot to do it with a click. And John the next day was leaving on tour and he's in the parking lot. And the producer realized that and came out and Dave chased down and goes, "Are you my friend? Okay, I need something from you. I need you to redo every single guitar track to a click right now." And he was up all night doing that and still made the tour. But to me, I've heard that before in a few interviews, although he said to Corgan, like, "I've never told anyone this before." And they're like, "Then how do I know these stories?" But I loved the Marilyn Manson stories that he told about being ignored by I think the guy named Pogo.
Yes. Yeah, was that
Yeah.
the name? Right, but yeah, right. Those
Yeah, it was
Manson stories are super interesting. You're screwing up, and he's got the tape. He's like, I'm playing this the way I'm supposed to be playing it.
Yeah, it was a good interview. Um, I think it's intriguing how John Five, you can't get him to say a negative thing about anybody at any time. That makes me a little suspicious.
Yeah, and I was thinking the whole time when he was talking generally good things about Manson was the fact that they got into a fight on stage.
Yeah, yeah. The PTSD that John has dealt with and the grief and the loss and all that
Yeah,
clearly weighs down. So it's further intriguing how he can be such a pleasant, timid, nice
I think he's
person.
done I think that guy's done a lot of work on himself, man, and bravo for doing it. I love the guy. I did an in-store with him years ago, and you couldn't. We were talking. I knew he was a big fan of Kiss. I didn't know he was a huge fan of the Brady Bunch. So we're talking Brady Bunch trivia on the way to the Best Buy store.
Yeah.
But just the such a nice guy and an amazing guitar player. That those things that's always going to kill me was one, well, the California sessions, but God, what I would have given to have heard some more rock songs from him and Dave.
Who knows if more stuff was recorded because that DLR band album has three different guitar players. I think it's two songs with Mike Hartman. I think 4 or 5 songs with Terry Kilgore and 4 or 5 or so with John Five. It's some ridiculous split like that. Who
Yeah, it's
knows if
kind
they
of a
cut
weird.
another 10?
Yeah, and if you notice too, I mean, the songwriting credits are John plays on the ones he wrote, if I remember correctly.
Hmm.
Kilgore wrote a couple, 3 or 4 songs, and he's on those. Yeah, I absolutely just love that record. I mean,
Yeah.
that record is just amazing. And what was interesting too was he alluded to the fact that what you've brought up a couple of times that Dave was ahead of his time with that record. He did it all, put it out on his own label, was freaking
Hmm.
making. Did you catch that part in the Corgan interview?
Yeah, he mentioned Christian. I believe that's his name. He was the manager and assistant after Ed Anderson, that he was burning the CDs with Dave in the backyard, Dave's CD label maker and all that.
I mean, just some great stories. But the other thing too that I caught too was John specifically mentioned the song from the California sessions. And I always wondered about this, but he specifically mentioned the song that was basically Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Anyhow or Anyway, that song in
Yeah.
particular, which was I never it's when was that song recorded? Was that part of the original pre Eddie's death? Do you know what I mean? That's when I always
Yes.
thought it was, but yet it came out after Eddie's death as kind of a tribute, and John alluded to the lyrics being about that it's being about Van Halen coming up, and just interesting timeline thing I was wondering about there.
Okay, so I tried to explore that a little bit in my book, then a little bit through extra research I did after the book came out. And there's so much misinformation that's been misprinted. So some people say that the California Sessions was 2007, and that's not the case. Other people put it in the 2011 or 2012 mark. What somebody who knows what they're talking about told me was that was done almost concurrently with a different kind of truth because he thought that the Van Halens were going to mess him over again. So he wanted to have like a parachute just in case exit strategy. And that was
Oh,
partially the California sessions. And I'm going to say the word allegedly 2 or 3 times. Allegedly, allegedly, that was the case. Now, Dave himself has changed that narrative because I think it was a USA Today article where he talked about how, because of Book of Mormon, he wanted to write a jukebox musical and how these songs could be for a musical. Then around that time, he said that he offered those songs that he did with John Five to the Van Halens for A Different Kind of Truth, and they turned him down. So aren't those three different kind of explanations?
Okay, there's no way he offers songs that he co-wrote with someone outside of Van Halen for a Van Halen project. For a Van
I
Halen
disagree.
album.
I disagree. I think he would do that because you remember how Ed wanted to potentially use Desmond Child, and Dave saw Desmond Child and went, "What are you doing here? No, go away." I think there have been whispers of using collaborators to get a hit.
They were chasing the pop stuff, that's for sure. I mean, with the Hagar years, I mean, having Mick Jones produce 5150, that was to this day that struck me as. And then he also, don't forget, Mick Jones also produced Billy Joel's Stormfront album.
Yeah.
But and remember they worked with Glenn Ballard with Sammy.
Yeah.
Last Morissette producer, a pop producer.
And Danny Korchmar, who did River of Dreams by Billy Joel, coincidentally, was supposed to do the album after Van Halen 3. So you could tell they at a certain point went, hey, we want to cross over.
We need some hits.
And Dave did use Bob Rock after almost using Bob Ezrin for A Little Ain't Enough. And he used Nile Rodgers for Your Filthy Little Mouth. So I don't think he's afraid of trying to chase a hit or two himself. So going back, I think Dave would have offered songs to the Van Halens, and they would have listened to that and went, "No, why? Why would we do that?"
I just think having an outside songwriting credit on there is, I mean, has that happened in Van Halen's catalog? Are there any songs? I mean,
I'll Wait from 1984.
Oh, okay, one song, right? Well, Michael McDonald got the credit, right?
Most of Diver Down, but I see what you mean.
Well, no, I mean not a cover song. I mean a song, an original song on a Van Halen album that has somebody outside of the four of them in the songwriting credits.
We can argue Ted Templeman co-wrote Van Halen songs and just didn't push for the publishing, right? You'll back that up.
Well, I don't know, because how much of those first three albums were on before Templeman even got involved with the Gene Simmons tapes?
But he rewrote the songs. The story about how Dave wrote the lyrics to Jump, where depending on the story, it's like Rudy Laren was driving him around, or Ted Templeman was giving him corrections to the lyrics or feedback, or he was A&Ring. I guess he made producer points and A&R points, so he was fine and didn't need the publishing. But you do make a good point that they probably wanted the writing credits to say Van Halen, Van Halen, Van Halen, Roth.
Right. Plus, that would have been, I'll tell you, that would have, I wouldn't say it erupt a firestorm, but that would have really, man, that would have had fans going, people just going, what? If there was an outside songwriter involved. Right. Who? What? Yeah.
Yeah. So whatever it is, there's confusion about whether it was a revenge tactic or a jukebox musical. When it was made, that's also confusing. And also timelines. I think we've talked about this on the podcast, but there's certain years of Dave where there's just so little, like 2000, between, you could say 2000 and the Sam and Dave tour of 2002. Where was he? There's like one Philly radio show, which is on YouTube. There's a handful of gigs, but where was he? Was he just living at Crazy Girls all those
wait, when was he in, what were the years he was living in New York and doing the EMT thing?
I can only guess. I've seen his license years and all that. I'm thinking that was 2001 or 2 to 2006.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it was the early aughts, wasn't it?
But one of his inside sources in some interview said that the EMT stuff was in the late 90s. I think that was the Deep Throat Dave Whisperer on Dave Unchained. They said that, and that is factually incorrect.
Right. I just looked it up real quick, and there was an Ultimate Classic Rock article. He worked with Emergency Crews in the Bronx in 2004. So that puts that's right where you had it.
And the last license of his that I got as part of my book research, it showed that it expired in like '07 or '08. I don't know if he was doing the work or he just got the license in the middle of the Van Halen tour or something like that, renewed it because he just went, oh, okay, it's $100. Why not just renew it and keep it active? But
Right.
yeah, there's some quiet years, and you go the Van Halen reunion shows were '07 and '08, and then the next run of a different kind of truth in the related tour was like 11, 12, 13. So you kind of go like, well, what was 2009 and 2010? Was that the California sessions?
And was that spent half overseas or God knows where doing God knows what?
Yeah, I mean, I could really be a crazy investigator and try and get that information, but that's not going to benefit anyone. And it's definitely going to get me mentioned in more security meetings, which I don't need to be
Right.
mentioned in. So, what
Right.
we've learned today, we're giving you the good and the bad. We're willing to give them a shot with these new winter tour dates, which we don't know where they're going to be or who they're going to be with. I assume it's going to be the same band. Do you think it's going to be the exact same band?
I would imagine it has to be.
Do you think it's going to be the same list, exact same set list, or like the same but two songs swapped?
Let's put it this way. It wouldn't surprise me if it was exactly the same, nor would it. I'm waffling here. I know it sounds like I'm waffling, but I can imagine because they did change a couple songs up in the middle of this run.
Yeah, like
But
two or
maybe,
three
maybe,
things. Yeah,
maybe it's mostly the same songs, but the running order is different.
I think that Ice Cream Man would come back.
There's another one that I thought that would have been. I'm surprised doesn't make it out there because and the band goes off, right? And Dave's out there doing what he loves to do, being out in the chair, right? Noodling around, telling stories, that sort of thing. Like he did on the last Van Halen tour when he was in
Yeah,
the last Van Halen tour 2015. He's sitting there on the stool. The guys take a breather, grudgingly, I think. And Dave's noodling on about whatever, and summertime sit back, need something to keep you cool, and off to the races.
I think that should come back, even if it bores me and I don't ever need to hear it again or see it again. I think that will have to come back, and maybe Pretty Woman goes away, and maybe California Girls comes into the set list, something like that. I don't think we're ever going to hear Yankee Rose live, and that's not something that anyone told me except Mike Musselman, and Mike Musselman's been out of the band for what, 5.5 years now.
Mm. For God's sakes, man, give us one or two songs from the solo album, please. From the solo years, solo albums, catalog, please.
If I were to guess, because Musselman had told me that Tobacco Road was one that the band wanted to play, and he swore that was in the set list. I don't remember it from the nights I saw in Vegas. It's possible it was there, but he
Tobacco
said
Road
that
would be another good one. Sure.
Dave would be receptive to it, and we know that's a cover, but that's a cool deep cut cover.
Oh yeah, and totally fits right in with the set list, and that band would kill it.
Yeah, um, that's what I'm hoping for. I don't foresee more solo material or re-records coming. Do you?
No, no. I mean, are there more California session songs that haven't dropped? We got most of the album's worth. What is there, 7 or 8, 9 songs? I remember we did an episode where we counted it all and it was like, two here, three here, one here. It's like, geez, you got almost a full album now.
I
Is
think
that
that
it?
there,
Are they
I
out?
think there is more, but the person I asked years ago said it was never properly finished. It was just they did the
Right.
sessions, they did rough mixes, and then they never properly mastered, sequenced. I guess they never titled it. They never did artwork. You
What
would have
was
thought you
what
would
was
have
this?
thought that the pandemic would have been enough time to get those affairs in order.
Right. Man,
You were about to say something though. I cut you off.
something reminded me, and I think I would have answered my own question though, that there was one of those weird things was, oh my God, how is this song not registered with ASCAP? One of those wackadoodle things, you know?
Scotch and sofa.
Maybe that was.
And also on a positive note, by the way, Ramses.
Yeah.
I call him Ramses. He says his name is Ramses. I think he's wrong. I think it's Ramses. Doesn't know how to say his own name. But some of his content, like the 70th birthday stuff for Dave, awesome. And by the way, I don't remember any Dave postings about his 71st birthday. Rather,
and a happy belated. No, happy belated. It was October 10th.
Yeah. No, nothing about that, and I don't remember any tributes on Eddie's death anniversary. Do you?
No. By the way,
yeah,
I think I brought this up last time, but for goodness sake, last episode, but for goodness sakes, as far as tour merch, call Ramses.
Yeah.
My goodness, what a cool, you got a couple of different options. You see his artwork up there. I mean, that guy would kill doing some sort of cool tour shirt.
Yeah. He's officially done stuff for them, video content for them before. And then he's also done unofficial stuff that they've endorsed. So I would say he's the go-to for that. I'm not saying you'd do it for free, but you would recoup anything you paid him in a day, in an hour with the sales.
Right.
They have thousands of people who, if they put up a shirt, would buy it within an hour. Guaranteed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know we were talking about this last time. Roth Tour 2025, just tour dates. And that cool picture that's in the Vegas poster. You sent me one of those posters, right? Where he's looking at the camera. I mean, that's the front. Done. You got a shirt. Make 1,000 of them, blow them out, $40 a piece. You're good to go.
If not, there's plenty of bootlegs on TEE Public, which maybe if you look, maybe I put up some of them. Maybe I didn't. We can't confirm or deny if I've posted bootleg shirts out there. But the bottom line is, it's just, I would love to see Dave merch. I would buy it. I would proudly wear it, even if I don't want to love everything he does. We are sorely lacking merch.
Yeah. Among other things, we're sorely lacking. like a conclusion to this episode. All right, folks.
and Steve, before we wrap, your Cooler Better Side podcast.
Oh,
who's coming up? What's coming up?
Another cool rock podcast. I got a couple people in the hopper right now. One guy, I don't have dates yet, but there's a couple people I'm looking at. One guy I would rather do when he gets off the road next month versus doing it on a tour bus. So, and hopefully have somebody who spaced on our interview 2 weeks ago. I love this guy's music. I want him, hopefully he'll get back on. So, it can be a very Sisyphean endeavor starting a podcast from scratch. So, and I want to talk to people that I really want to talk to. I mean, I get a ton of press release all the time, but there's a lot of music I'm not into, and I have a limited amount of time. I want to talk to people who make the music that I love. So
nothing but that's
and nothing but nothing at the moment, but next month. Plus, I've been super busy, and I've been traveling and had surgery, and all of a sudden it's now October, and then sometimes you don't have the time, or it's like, all right, the weather's still so nice here, and I've been working my ass off in the day job. So those are all my excuses, but to answer your question, there will be some more episodes coming up in the next 3 to 4 weeks.
So the winter brings Dave tours and Steve podcasts. So hopefully, the winter won't be so bad after all.
And I'm sure we'll be back with another episode of the DLR cast, but might be a little while.
Well, thanks to anyone still listening. Thanks to anyone who did listen. And thanks to Steve for his continued patience.
Take care, folks.
Look at all the people here tonight.